Well, hello, Brian Miller here. I am getting all set up for a virtual magic experience for a client this evening. And I thought I'd give you a little behind the scenes tour of what it actually takes to produce a world-class virtual magic show. Now, it should go without saying, but you do have to have an engaging and entertaining show to begin with. All the tech in the world isn't going to get you there if you don't already have an engaging and entertaining show. Luckily, at the time that we went into the COVID-19 pandemic and everything went virtual for the foreseeable 1 to 2 years for the live event industry, I have already been doing this for 16 years. I've traveled the world across 5 continents and just thousands and thousands of shows for thousands and thousands of audiences and across cultures. And so I knew that I had what it takes to create an engaging and entertaining show for a virtual audience. Interestingly though, I really had to build my show or rebuild my show from the ground up because 80% of the material that I used to do in the real world didn't work here virtually. Now, what do I mean it didn't work? Well, I am a highly interactive performer, and my stage shows in the real world would involve tons and tons of audience volunteers coming up to become the stars of the show themselves. And yet so much of that depended on my ability to hand them things, for them to check stuff out, for them to use props and then hand them back to me or make decisions. And so I had to get rid of all the material that relied on physically handing stuff back and forth with an audience member, as you might imagine. And instead, what I did is I built a show that could rely on input from either a live chat or from volunteers video conferencing in the middle of the show, as if they were coming on stage during the show. Now, why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because the technology we choose to create a show in the virtual space depends on the kind of performance that we're doing and the demands of the show itself. So all of a sudden I realized I had a lot of demands to produce this show. So let's take a look at the technology that is required to put on the virtual magic experience that I'm offering my clients. First, it should be said that I am lucky, very lucky to have already had a broadcast studio built into my house. And it's also where I produce all my YouTube videos because I run multiple YouTube channels with tens of thousands of subscribers and hundreds of videos. I run a podcast out of here. So I was already set up with the right space. And you might notice if you've looked around the room as I was setting things up, that this room is professionally acoustically treated. There's no echo, there's no room noise, there's no reverb, there's nothing in this room. It is dead quiet. Listen. Yeah, this room is silent, which is a miracle for me to have in a world where I now produce 100% of my events from home. Second thing I got really lucky with is I actually went to school for audio engineering way back in the day. Audio is a lifelong passion of mine. I even run a YouTube channel and a series of online education platforms for audio instruction. All right, first things first, let's talk about the cameras because it couldn't be a magic show without cameras. And I did say cameras plural. We're gonna turn and look that way. What you're looking at here are 2 different angles. This camera, which is a wide shot showing you everything that I'm doing all at once, and this camera, which is a close-up shot just on my hands on the table. They sit permanently in my studio and never move, so I'm always ready to go at a moment's notice in case you have a last-minute event. The cameras are all fed into this switcher station right here, the main cam, and then second, which is the close-up camera. I have 2 other cameras, sources that I use for different types of events, but these first 2 are the ones I use for magic. This crazy thing sits mounted on this audio mixer stand, which we'll get to in a minute, and it's within arm's reach during the entire show. So at any moment I can switch by just reaching over from my wide cam to my close-up cam. Now you'll notice if you look there, if I look at the camera, that when I switch from the wide cam to the close-up cam, we actually get a picture-in-picture of my face while they're looking at my hands with a close-up, perfect, wonderful view of whatever I'm doing, whatever magic I'm doing. They can still see my face at all times, which means they never feel like they're missing the action, and they never feel like I'm doing something secret during the cuts or off screen. And that's really important because one of the trickiest things about doing virtual magic is the true sense of wonder that people feel when they're experiencing magic in person. In a virtual show, we're so used to seeing things on Instagram and YouTube and TV that have been hyper edited and spliced together that it's really easy to assume that I'm doing something over here off camera or underneath the camera that you can't see. And that's why I use the multicam with the picture-in-picture so you can see everything at all times, and you're convinced that what you're seeing is no different than you'd be seeing in the real world, which incidentally is the case with all of my magic. So let's talk about audio for a second. This giant mixing console that's on a rolling desk here, which means I can move it to wherever I need to in the studio for different types of projects. This is the hub of my entire audio workstation during the virtual magic show. I have multiple different microphones and different audio sources that do different things for the show. For instance, these first two channels give me any audio coming from the computer. That audio comes in from the computer. So for instance, if you come on screen or on stage as it were, and you're talking to me, I need to be able to hear you. So these first two channels feed me a stereo signal into my headphones, which are not plugged in right now, but I wear these musicians in-ear monitors, almost hidden, kind of like a magic trick. So they go right back here, and then they plug in via a cable that is strapped to the stool that I sit on so it can't accidentally get pulled out in the middle of the show. Using these monitors, I'm actually able to hear everything coming from the computer. But here's the key, and we don't need to go into the technical details, but one of the things this giant, amazing, lovely board does for me is something called mix minus, which simply means I'm able to send audio back to you through this board, all the audio, my microphones and sound effects and music and all of these kind of things. I'm able to send it into the computer minus the audio from the computer. Why is that important? It's really important because if I wasn't able to do that, then you would hear your own audio coming back to you. You know how you've ever been in a Skype call or a Zoom call and you hear your own voice echoing back to you, and it's almost impossible to focus on what you're saying with that echo of yourself in your own ear? Well, that's because there's not a mix minus setup. The mix of my audio minus what you're saying for you to hear. And I'm able to do that with this board, which means we've got echo-free audio for the volunteers and the audience. And speaking of audio, this microphone on a boom stand overhead is what I'm using for the primary audio during the show. Now, I tested out a lot of different options for audio, including headset mics like I used to wear on stage in giant rooms that were wireless. I tested lav mics like I'm actually using to record this video right now. And I ultimately landed on a boom microphone overhead. That means a couple of things. It's not in the frame. You cannot see a microphone at all in the frame while I'm doing my show, which I think actually helps the audience feel like this is a very conversational sort of a thing. Like I'm just doing the show for you and your friends, whoever's watching. And even if I'm broadcasting the show to hundreds or thousands of people, it should feel very personal, which is really important to me. As soon as you see microphones, it feels theatrical, which is one of the reasons why wearing the headset mic I didn't feel was good. I felt like being able to see the headset mic made it feel weirdly theatrical and kind of put a wall up between me and the virtual audience. And the sound of a headset mic is very isolating. You don't hear the fact that I'm in an actual space. You couldn't hear the playing cards because it was just so close to my mouth that it got rid of everything else. And using this mic overhead means it's a little bit less isolated, but you feel, the way the audio sounds, you feel like I'm in a room, like I might be in the room with you. And that makes the entire show feel more personal. And speaking of theatrical, I use my iPad over here, built into this stand, in order to play music cues and sound effects. Thank you. And we need a portable hole. And I'm gonna use these colorful stickers for the portable hole. Oh yes, thank you.
That's crazy.
What was that weak applause? Did you hear? I could choose any applause in the world and that's what I gave myself? Oh. This iPad is also within arm's reach, just like my hardware camera switcher is within arm's reach. In the real world, on a stage in front of an audience, a silent moment or an extra long pause can be very exciting because you're wondering what's gonna happen next. But virtually, when we are watching a show on our phone or tablet or computer, any silence or any dead time, any extra long pauses, are an opportunity for someone to click off and go do something else. So we try to eliminate, by using the music and the sound effects, any of those pauses, and I can use it to keep flowing during the show. By now you've undoubtedly noticed the lights. I've got a big light on me here. I've got a light way over there that actually is angled at the table itself, so that all of my props during the show are well lit. And then there's this light way up here behind me hanging from the ceiling. And that is a hair light. A hair light is exactly what it sounds like. It's a light from behind and above that professional videographers, professional filmmakers, lighting crews use to help the back of you stand out from the back wall. It helps separate you from the back wall and create depth in a video. And that is so important, that light, during my virtual magic shows, because it helps keep the focus on me and not on the background. Speaking of the background though, hang on one second. Hey Google, turn studio lights to purple. This is a theatrical show after all, and so I have those track lights on the ceiling are multicolor bulbs that are activated by my voice, so for whatever type of event I'm doing, I can make the back wall a completely different color. I typically use purple for my magic shows because I think this is a really cool look. And last but not least, we need to talk about the software that I use to engage with the live audience in the chat during the show, to put up comments or questions on the screen to help get engagement and interaction, and to invite folks to come on stage by video conferencing in right in the middle of the show. Now for exclusive and intimate kind of private events, I use Zoom, which we're all used to, and I don't need to go over that here. But for live stream, for larger audiences, for big company-wide events or festivals or conferences, I use something called StreamYard. Let's take a look. This is the StreamYard interface, and as soon as I want to add myself, I can click right down here. Now, if there are multiple people here, I could add each of them by clicking just like I added myself, and that's how I'm able to bring up multiple people on the screen at once. That's how I can bring up volunteers during the middle of the show, by giving them this link, which is generated uniquely for each show that I do. I get a unique link which I can share privately or publicly to invite people to volunteer during the show. I also have access to all kinds of cool things like banners. I can put up a large banner. I could give instructions like, hey, introduce yourself in the chat, the show's gonna start in less than 5 minutes, and then change it to, get settled, get comfortable, 1 minute to showtime. And if I want to invite people on screen, as I was just mentioning, I can put up a participate link and give a public URL like brianmillerspeaks.com/whatever the client name is, where people can go, and that's where they can find the volunteer link. Now, during the actual show, there will be comments coming in via the live stream, via a chat, and they will show up over here. I can click on any one of these, and it will show up on screen with the person's profile image. And so if somebody says, hey, I'm really enjoying the show, the ability to put comments from people in the chat on the screen in the middle of the event is really what helps people feel connected and engaged, and they realize that I'm really there with them in person. And for security, I have the ability to delete any comments, to block a user completely from being in the live chat, and I have the ability to completely ban anybody from actually coming on screen. Plus, I can see the image of anybody who's going to come on screen before they do and choose whether to bring them on or not. In fact, I'm the only one that can choose whether somebody comes on screen with me or not, keeping the security issues to an absolute minimum. And if it seems like I'm doing a lot of stuff during the show, I am. I'm managing my cameras, switching from 2 different angles. I'm managing all of my audio, the sound effects and the music cues on the iPad. I'm managing via a mouse on the screen the chat that's coming in via the live stream, bringing people on and off screen at a time, putting banners up, and all of this is happening in real time, and you won't believe how seamless it actually is. And that is how I produce a world-class, highly engaging, interactive magic experience for corporations, for college students, for communities and family get-togethers, for exclusive private events, for really anything that you've got going on. Because as we know, it's been a very strange year, and it doesn't look like we're going to get back to normal anytime soon. But just because we can't do things the way they were doesn't mean that things can't be awesome now. And by leveraging all of this crazy technology in my home broadcast studio, I'm able to produce an experience that is hopefully incredibly enjoyable and connecting, because at the end of the day, the card tricks don't really matter. I know you like seeing them, I like doing them, but that's not really what this show is about. What is my show about? What's the purpose of my work? The purpose of my work is to connect people, to engage people, to give people a shared experience that they can talk about and remember for the rest of their lives, and to share it with others, whether it's their colleagues and coworkers, whether it's their friends and family, whoever you are, wherever you are. That is my goal, that is my job, and I hope that you enjoyed this behind the scenes look. My name is Brian Miller. For more information, head to brianmillermagic.com or go to the links in the description below. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you. Time to get ready. Got a show tonight. Woo!